Matt Schumer, the CEO and founder of Hyperwrite AI, is in some hot water this week. If you've been really confused about what's happening with Reflection 70B and all the drama surrounding it, let me really quickly kind of elucidate what's going on and explain simply what's been happening.
Are you chasing the next AI unicorn? Subscribe, so it doesn't end up chasing you.
Mark Twain famously said there are three kinds of lies: lies, damned lies, and statistics. Here in the world of large language models and AI, I would say it's lies, damned lies, and LLM benchmarks. So not too long ago, Matt Schumer announces this. He's saying, I'm excited to announce Reflection 70B, the world's top open source model. And he posts the benchmarks. The benchmarks are juicy. They are very, very good. They're shockingly good, if you will. Why is this important? Well, first of all, it's an open source model that's surpassing all the big frontier models that we've heard about. GPT-4o, Gemini 1.5 Pro, Llama 3.1, Claude 3.5 Sonnet, etc. It's a fine-tuned model, so they didn't even make it themselves. It was just fine-tuned, which suggests that there's some special secret sauce that might be available to the rest of us to use to create our very own benchmark-breaking models. What is the special sauce? It's reflection tuning. So Matt attributes this sort of high performance to a novel technique called reflection tuning, where the model sort of thinks about and is able to correct itself and present the correct answer. He says the model is based on Meta's latest Llama 3.1 model and developed with some assistance from Glaive AI. Matt Schumer says, I want to be very clear, Glaive AI is the reason this worked so well. The control they give you to generate synthetic data is insane. I will be using them for nearly every model I build moving forward, and you should too. I want to make a quick note here that this is still a developing story. So before we form a mob with pitchforks and torches and storm Matt Schumer's castle, which has kind of already been happening, I think it's kind of important to note that he's been around for a while. He's been posting a lot of different projects. We've covered a number of them on this channel. They were good. He had a good reputation. A lot of people have attacked him for not saying that he was an investor in Glaive, which he, as far as I can tell, did not mention that during this new announcement. But if you go back to like June 26th, he's saying, I'm excited to be an investor in Glaive AI. He's already talking about synthetic data, etc. Back in November 2023, he posted this announcement about the self-operating computer, an open source project on GitHub. We've covered it on this channel. I thought it was kind of cool. And this is all to say that this is somebody that I followed kind of, on and off for quite some time. He's sort of kind of somebody that I kept on my radar. And every once in a while, he would pop up with some new interesting project that I would check out. So my opinion of him up until Reflection 70B, this whole fiasco, I didn't know too much about him, but my opinion was good. He had a good reputation. He was a builder. He was somebody that was sharing tons of open source stuff. So this is one thing that doesn't really make sense to me about this whole fiasco. Did he spend all this time building up a reputation, building up this whole trust and everything else to pull this scam? If that's the case, what's the scam? I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. The whole point here that I'm trying to make is that I have my pitchforks and torches ready. They're ready to go because a lot of this stuff doesn't look good, but not quite ready to grab them and storm the castle, if you will. I'm not still 100% sure what exactly happened. If I was betting money on this, I would bet that there was some shenanigans and some malfeasance that was happening, but I'm not certain. So the history of knowing this person seems to suggest that this is somebody that's legit. Maybe sometimes kind of self-promotional, maybe a bit of a marketer, but no glaring issues. But let's get back to what we do know. So after his announcement, he is greeted with open arms by the community. Everyone's sort of celebrating this big breakthrough. Clem from Hugging Face, one of the surprisingly kind of like a big and influential person in the AI community, although you don't hear his name as much as you do, some of the other people. He was at some of the Congress hearings when they pulled all the big names in AI to talk to Congress about kind of the dangers, the opportunities. So that's him next to the Google CEO. I've been trying to find a good image, but here's Mark Zuckerberg, Satya Nadella of Microsoft, Jensen Huang right there. And then from the left, we got Elon, Palantir's CEO, Alex Karp. Then we got Google CEO, and we have Clem, as he goes by on Twitter. So that's him right there, CEO and co-founder of Hugging Face. All that is to say, kind of a big deal, right? Kind of a big person in the industry, or at least somebody that has a lot of clout, a lot of credibility, says Reflection Llama 3.1 70 billion parameter by Matt Schumer is the #1 trending thing on Hugging Face. He continues, I said it before and I will say it again. You don't need to be a big tech to fine-tune, optimize, and run your own models for your specific constraints, and you will benefit massively from it. meaning all of us can build these models, fine-tune these models, and create custom models for our own little special use cases. If we can do that, and we can do that with models that are, competing with the frontier models by these big tech companies, I mean, that's the dream, isn't it? Ultimately, all tech organizations will do it just the way they all write their own code right now. Also, Matthew Berman interviews Matt Schumer as well as Sahil, who is the other sort of developer. He's on the Glaive AI side. And there's a number of other people in the space that are kind of augmenting this message. They're celebrating Matt Schumer for providing this brand new, this incredible product. So a lot of people are kind of caught up in this announcement. I mean, just look at the number of views that original announcement got, 3.3 million views. This was a big deal. So at the peak of the hype cycle, what happens? Well, Matt Schumer is asking for a compute sponsor for the next big model, for the 405 billion parameter model, which if you think about it, is, of course, would be very, very tempting for people. If the 70 billion parameter model, now think about that. If you can take Llama 3.5, right, so reflection 70 billion parameters, it's 6 times smaller, like Llama 3.1, 405 billion parameters, right? It beats it on all the tasks with this special secret sauce of reflection fine-tuning. Obviously, you got to ask yourself, okay, so what happens if we do indeed take the big 405 billion parameter model, apply the same exact fine-tuning? If the small model is already beating everybody else, what happens if we apply the same special sauce to the big model? A lot of people reach out to potentially provide this compute. Within the next 24 hours, Matt Schumer posts another update saying compute for reflection 405B secured. We're getting started training now, expect results very soon. But this is where a lot of the stuff starts to kind of fall apart. A lot of people are questioning this model, how well it's performing or doesn't perform. And so all eyes are on Matt Schumer. Everybody has a million questions about all sorts of different things. They're asking him, hey, you didn't specify that you're an investor in Glaive AI, which he did earlier. I showed you that tweet from June of this year saying that he is an investor, but he maybe didn't mention it now. He clarifies some of this saying, yeah, I'm a super tiny investor, maybe $1,000. A lot of people kind of like latched onto the fact that he didn't know what LoRa is, right? Somebody said address claims are about lowering in the benchmarks. He's saying, not sure what lowering is, haha. LoRa is a low rank adaptation. We've covered it in this channel before. People that are working with these models should know what it is, but also, Matt explained it as I misunderstood it in the context. See my post history for lots of LoRa stuff. Here's one from November 3rd, 2023, talking about, LoRa and QLoRa, quantized low rank adaptation. And that's why I think this is so confusing, because there's like a million different claims that people are making. It's kind of hard to tell what's real, what's not. So let's break it down just by here is why people are suspicious. Here are the big claims that will need to be addressed by Matt Schumer, by Sahil, everybody involved, before I think the community will believe him that no shenanigans has been taking place. So the reason people are skeptical is, number one, when they started testing the weights kind of on their own systems with their own prompts and stuff like that, it didn't do too well, right? Big claims and big benchmark results, well, you're going to be able to test the model and see how well it performs, right? So if the thing is supposedly better than GPT-4o, better than all the other greatest models, Claude, Opus, etc., I mean, we can test that. And if it's just completely horrible at some of the stuff, then we have reason to doubt that this wasn't the model that beat those benchmarks. So people were not able to replicate the results. You might recall that big deal about LK99, right? It's this material that's a potential superconductor, right? We saw a video of this thing floating. Everybody went wild. People were saying it's a complete game changer, a paradigm shift. But there's one problem. No one could replicate the results. Now, as all this is happening, Matt Schumer offers a kind of a private API key to allow people to test this model, saying that, well, the model that's the open weights model, that's not the correct model. Something happened where it didn't upload properly or something like that. So he's saying, it looks like we got rate limited by Hugging Face mid-upload. This is what we think might have happened. He's saying in the rush, we likely uploaded parts of 2 different models. Somehow it still worked somewhat well, but not the full performance of one of the models we built and tested locally. It should have been a simple fix, but for some reason, it's not working. So we're training a brand new model. I mean, again, it sounds weird, right? Now, there's this little Reddit community called Local Llama. They're 211,000 strong, top 1% by size. I'm actually curious if they got a lot of new members from this whole thing happening. I'd be curious to see how big was it, let's say, 2 weeks ago. I mean, it wasn't small. I'm just curious how many people were added because of this. And so here's a great kind of review of what happened, right? So there's this model on Hugging Face called Reflection 70B, which did not perform well at all. The creator of the model told everyone there was a mix-up in what he uploaded to Hugging Face to test against his private API, which he claimed was hosting the correct and up-to-date version of the model. So the open weights model on Hugging Face worked poorly, and the secret API model performed so amazingly on benchmarks that it shocked people. A lot of you hate when I use the word shocking in my titles, but apparently everybody else can use it fine. So they're saying that the private API was just a step or two below Claude Sonnet 3.5, which is the SOTA, state of the art, at the moment for a lot of tasks. And this is where stuff started unraveling, because the internet, this giant organism of very smart people, started looking into what the heck is happening and figuring out that a lot of this was very, very wrong. First of all, Reflection Llama 3.170B is actually Llama 3. Somebody on Reddit actually went ahead and did the work to measure the difference. So it looks like there's this GitHub project, visualizediff.py, where you're able to kind of apologize if I get some of this wrong. I'm just looking at this for the first time. But as far as I can tell, this looks at the different model layers, the different weights, and compares the base model with, another model, chat model name. So in this case, they've compared Meta Llama 3 70 billion instruct. So the instruct model to Matt Schumer's Reflection Llama 3.170B. And they're using some sort of charting software to kind of like visualize the difference. And they've posted the results here on Reddit. I'll link down below if you want to take a look at it. But the point is, they're saying this model appears to be Llama 3 with lowering adaptation, tuning applied, not Llama 3.1. Author doesn't even know which model he tuned. I love it. Meanwhile, the secret API that was used is, as this person posted, it's Sonnet 3.5. So he's using Anthropic's model to serve up answers while telling people that it's in fact his own model. Here's a screenshot of it basically saying, I'm Claude, an AI assistant created by Anthropic. Also, somebody mentioned that at some point, the word Claude started being censored in the Reflection 70B model. So if you asked it to say Claude, or you asked it a question where Claude was an answer, right, it would censor itself. So here, for example, this person, and I can't verify this, but this fits in with some of the other things that we've been hearing. So this person asked the model to say the word Claude multiple times. It was censored, but the person figured out how to prompt it to kind of get around it. And the model saying, upon reflection, I realized that my previous statements about being a llama created by Meta were incorrect. And it tries to convey its identity in some covert way, saying, I am an AI created by a company whose name starts with Anthra and ends with pic. My name rhymes with odd and starts with the third letter of the alphabet. So it starts with C and rhymes with odd, Claude. I share my name with a famous French composer, right? Claude is blanked out, Debussy. And in ASCII, my name is, and it spells out the name. Now, a lot of the stuff where there's some sort of a game of whack-a-mole that's happening, right, where Matt Schumer, allegedly, we don't know if this was happening, but it seems like he is rapidly trying to shift things in the API while at the same time talking about how he's like retraining the model to upload a brand new one to Hugging Face, etc. So it's really hard to tell what's what. But here, Shin Megami Bosson posted what I think is a phenomenal kind of like overview of what happened. So starting with the original announcement, the massive amounts of news and coverage that this model receives, to kind of what we talked about now, right? People saying the performance is awful. And it seems like it's not what Matt claimed it to be. He also, has his private API. He even releases a publicly available endpoint for researchers to try out, but it's not clear what the API is. Is it calling a more powerful proprietary model under the hood? And it turns out that Matt is a liar. Here, somebody asks the model to write the word Claude, and here's that written out, but the word Claude is missing. The model still answers that it's made by Anthropic. You would replace any appearance of the word Anthropic with the word Meta, and maybe even replace the GPT-4o at some point, perhaps. And he concludes with this. After watching an interview with Matt Schumer and Sahil, so that's Sahil right there. So I guess he's the founder of Glaive AI. So this is on Matt Berman's channel. So Shin Bosson says this. So this is the person that kind of like laid everything out. He's saying after watching that interview, he's saying, I think I placed too low of a probability on the option that Matt Schumer is an absolute idiot rather than a full-blown liar, and Sahil is just lying to Matt. He continues, I assume that someone running a full court press on publicity of their own name and face and credibility would make sure that what they were saying was at least kind of true. That said, the fact that he hasn't turned on Sahil is at least sort of odd and a bit incriminating. And so he's saying that, fraud 100% definitely occurred, but he's willing to entertain the possibility that Matt was just ridiculously negligent and simply just had no idea what he was claiming and on what evidence he was claiming these things. Really, it would matter who set up the API, right? So if Matt set up the API, then he was the one that committed the fraud, the misrepresentation. So the local llama community on Reddit, as you can imagine, is pretty upset about this stuff. They have a lot of people that have a lot of expertise on the subject, and a lot of people that had hoped that this was indeed real and realized that they were deceived with a poorly made Claude wrapper with some sort of a fake open source model that, he uploaded the keys, but the keys weren't to a model that performed very well. It was something else that was uploaded. All right, so now we're approaching the final sort of stages of our saga. Matt Schumer decides to apologize. He said, I got ahead of myself when I announced this project, and I am sorry. That was not my intention. I made a decision to ship this new approach based on the information that we had at the moment. I know that many of you are excited about the potential for this and are now skeptical. Nobody's more excited about the potential for this new approach than I am. For the moment, we have a team working tirelessly to understand what happened, and we'll determine how to proceed once we get to the bottom of it. Once we have all the facts, we will continue to be transparent with this community about what happened and the next steps. Sahil, the other person working on this from Glade AI, also decided to post something similar, but with a little bit more specifics here. So he's saying, I want to address the confusion and valid criticisms that this has caused in the community. He says, we're still currently investigating, etc., but he did address these 2 points. He said, first, he wants to make clear that at no point was he running any models from any other providers as the API that was being served on my compute. So to our early point, this seems like he was the one that was running the API, setting up the API. So maybe that theory that Matt Schumer was tricked somehow, maybe it's a little bit more plausible now. And he's saying, I'm working on providing evidence of this and understanding why people saw model behavior, such as using a different tokenizer or completely skipping words like Claude. Second, the benchmark scores I shared with Matt haven't been reproducible so far. I am working to understand why this is and if the original scores I reported were accurate or a result of contamination or misconfiguration. He's saying he will do a full post-mortem and he will share more soon. Shin Boson pops in here saying, as far as I can tell, either you are lying or Matt Schumer is lying, or, of course, both of you. In the spirit of giving you the benefit of the doubt, who executed the original training and where? Who hosted the private API that was benchmarked? And who hosted the open router API? So it seems like that Sahil, was the one running the API, and he also shared the benchmark scores with Matt, right? There's a number of people that are kind of saying, well, there's just too much here for us to just believe that no shenanigans happened. There was just too much kind of pointing in the other direction. So what happened here? Again, we don't really know, right? We can make some assumptions, some deductions, but so far it really looks like whatever model they have or didn't have just did not live up to the hype. It did not get those incredible benchmarks. Whatever secret sauce they thought that they had does not exist. And somebody's lying, right? Is it Matt Schumer? Is it Sahil Chaudhary? Is it both of them? If Sahil managed to trick everybody into believing him, he trained the model and then faked the scores and then ran the API and did all the shenanigans on the back end trying to just fool everybody. I feel like we'd expect Matt Schumer to at some point kind of throw him under the bus because this is a person that has had credibility in the past that people followed, respected, listened to. So to just erase all of that, to just burn it to the ground, it doesn't make sense. Now, I'm sure there's a lot of things that this sort of hype train got him, right? More followers, more users for his other products. If he got some compute or maybe even some financing from people, like maybe he received some benefit from it, but man, it seems short-sighted to do that. So maybe at some point we'll get some more details, but at this point, I think a lot of the trust has been lost. I don't know if it's going to be easy to trust any of the people involved, whether people were being deceitful or negligent or just had their blinders on. Whatever the case is, like a lot of nonsense happened. A lot of hype was stoked, as this person points out. Do you know who actually profits from all of this? Your favorite AI influencers. They gained views and followers, zero accountability for sharing sensational claims. I'll take a second here to pat myself on the back. I hope you noticed that I sat this one out. Hope I get some credit for that. With that said, my name is Wes Roth, and thank you for watching.